requiring each community board to establish a Veterans Committee. Intro 685, which I've also sponsored, regarding procurement opportunities for veteran-owned business enterprises. And finally, Intro 1171, which I also sponsored, requiring a study and recommendations of the feasibility of implementing a pilot program to provide reconsolidation of traumatic memories, better known as RTM therapy for veterans. It's been very successful in its trials, and it's very inexpensive, which I'll mention in a little while. Let me, do we get Councilmember Vernikov? Okay, we're gonna hear from Councilmember Vernikov as soon as we get the feed on. Sorry about that. Those of you who have attended other hearings of this committee and heard me speak about two of my bills numerous times. First, the importance of having each community board establish its own veterans committee so that the needs of veterans can be heard and hopefully met in their neighborhoods, in their home neighborhoods. And second, the promising studies that show that RTM therapy, which I just spoke about, can be less expensive and more effective way of treating post-traumatic stress disorder in veterans than any other method so far currently being used. And my hope is that New York City can make RTM therapy more available here if a pilot program shows that it works. The other bill would enable veteran-owned businesses to identify as such when registering to do business with the City of New York. This bill would also require a creation of a veteran leadership advisory program to educate veteran-owned businesses about city procurement opportunities and to support those businesses during the procurement process. I believe that this bill would provide some much-needed support for our veteran-owned businesses. Let me now turn to the hearing topic, which is a universal concern. How do we make sure that veterans who have served our country, have given back, but are now left homeless as a result? We are both saddened and truly dismayed at the thought of veterans living on the streets, in shelters, or in temporary housing that most of the time is inadequate. And we fear for their physical and mental health and their economic outcomes as they try to find stability in their lives. Witnesses at this committee's hearing in the past have testified about conditions in at least one housing shelter in New York City that is dedicated to veterans, and about the difficulty they have in getting services and the need to survive and thrive in that atmosphere. Today, we want to understand the exact size of New York City's homeless veteran population, the ways that our city addresses their needs, and how we can improve. And that's what this hearing's about. How do we improve for the better these services and make them accessible to veterans? Nothing is more important to this committee. At this time, I would like to acknowledge my colleagues who are here: Christy Marmorata, council member, Bronx, Councilmember Vicky Palladino, and Councilmember Sandy Nurse. And I know Joanne Ariola is on her way. Yeah. So I also like to thank the committee staff who prepared for this hearing. The great John LaRosa, our legislative counsel, who this is our last hearing with you. So he's moving on to bigger and better things. So we're going to miss him. So we're going to work you today.
Yes.
And I want to thank Regina Paul, our policy analyst, who's not going anywhere. She better not. Ross Goldstein, our financial analyst. And finally, thanks to Daniel Casina, my chief of staff, who's somewhere in the back, and my legislative director, William Doherty, somewhere in the back there too. And they've been doing great work behind the scenes. And again, I want to thank them. I would now turn it over to our legislative counsel to administer the oath to witnesses from the administration.
Please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth,
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the committee and to respond honestly to council members' questions? Thank you. As a reminder to all of our witnesses, please state your name prior to your testimony for the record.
Good morning. James Hendon, Commissioner, New York City Department of Veteran Services. Good morning, Chair Holden, or good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee, and advocates. My name is James Hendon. I serve as Commissioner of the New York City Department of Veteran Services. Thank you for holding this hearing on meeting the needs of New York City's homeless veterans. I'm joined today by my colleagues, Lamar Wheeler, Senior Executive Director for Housing and Support Services, and Sonia Russell, Associate Commissioner for Adult Families, Veterans, and Special Services for the New York City Department of Homeless Services. Thank you for providing us with the opportunity to discuss DVS's efforts in partnership with our fellow city, state, and federal partners to address veteran homelessness in the 5 boroughs. Following my testimony, we welcome any questions that the committee members may have. Veteran homelessness is one of the most critical issues that DVS engages. It was a central focus before DVS was established as a department, dating back to when our agency initially served as the Mayor's Office of Veterans Affairs. In June of 2014, former First Lady Michelle Obama announced the federal government's Mayor's Challenge to End Veterans Homelessness. The Mayor's Challenge was an effort that the City of New York immediately joined. Since accepting the challenge more than 10 years ago, the City of New York, including entities like DVS and the Department of Social Services, have made remarkable progress in significantly reducing the population of veterans and veteran families who are housing insecure. As highlighted in a report by the New York State Comptroller, New York saw an 83% decline in the number of homeless veterans from 2010 to 2022. The Comptroller's analysis found that 90% of the 83% reduction came from the work occurring here in New York City. The reduction in the city's veteran homeless community is a remarkable achievement, largely credited to increased federal funding, our successful collaboration with the New York City Housing Authority, New York City Department of Social Services, New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Assisting veterans who are experiencing homelessness is one of the foundational pillars of this agency. Since our Housing and Support Services program was established in 2016, DVS has assisted more than 1,400 veterans with their moves into permanent or supportive housing. We have staff who are specifically dedicated to HSS, known as Veteran Housing Coordinators. DVS's Veteran Housing Coordinators serve as high-touch navigators, ensuring that veterans have a trusted, informed individual standing by their side as they traverse the housing process. Coordinators make sure that veterans have everything they need, including, but not limited to, providing support to help veterans assess and prepare for viable housing options, engaging on behalf of veterans with landlords and management companies, transporting veterans to and from apartment viewings, housing application assistance, broker landlord introductions, unit inspection assistance, facilitating one-shot deal requests, connecting recently housed veterans with furniture, and aftercare and eviction prevention support. Our goals are to help veterans understand the benefits that they are eligible for, connect them to desired benefits, identify a housing opportunity that is an appropriate fit, and ensure that those whom we assist do not revert backwards in their housing journey. Our team leverages existing subsidy programs and community resources to match veterans to the right level of care and support that they need. At the federal level, DVS leverages programs such as the Federally Funded Housing and Urban Development VA Supportive Housing Program, HUD-VASH, and the Supportive Services for Veteran Families Program, SSVF. At the state level, we promote the Veterans Emergency Housing Assistance Fund. Specific to New York City, DVS embraces local subsidies like Special One-Time Assistance, SOTA, City Fighting Homelessness and Eviction Prevention Support, City FEPS, and various forms of supportive housing to provide our constituency with an array of dwelling options. One of the most impactful partnerships administered in New York City is HUD-VASH Collaborative Case Management, or HUD-VASH CCM, formerly known as HUD-VASH Continuum. This subsidy program enables veterans who are not eligible for VA health care, a prerequisite for HUD-VASH, to receive a special HUD-VASH voucher so long as DVS, not the VA, provides social services and case management support. DVS estimates that in a given year, approximately 40% of all homeless veterans are not eligible for VA health care. As a result, the best pathway available to them often is to receive a HUD-VASH CCM voucher. DVS first piloted the HUD-VASH CCM program with the New York City Housing Authority in 2017. NYCHA, on behalf of HUD, provides the Housing Choice Section 8 voucher type of the program. DVS, acting in place of the VA, delivers pre-move-out, transitional, and aftercare eviction prevention services. DVS's efforts in support of a federal program delivering services that the VA will not provide amounts to a federal unfunded mandate. Since HUD-VASH CCM started 8 years ago, DVS has helped more than 300 veterans take advantage of this subsidy. Our veteran housing coordinators deliver thoughtful and comprehensive case management to those whom we assist during each step that they take. Beyond the coordination that occurs from an introduction through move-out from shelter where applicable, all veterans housed by DVS have access to aftercare follow-up. Aftercare ensures that veterans are connected to key services at all times, with a special emphasis on periods of transition and recovery. Aftercare services include critical time interventions, during which DVS checks in on those whom we've housed. Critical time interventions are performed during the following periods after move-out: 6 months, 11 months, 18 months, 24 months, and 36 months. A CTI, critical time intervention, may result in internal referrals to DVS and or external referrals to community partners who provide mental health, employment, and other enabling resources. In coordination with DHS, DVS, when needed, also works with SSVF-funded entities to place veterans into local, veteran-specific supportive housing sites. These organizations include Help USA, the Jericho Project, Services for the Underserved, and Volunteers of America. It is critical to understand the jurisdictional differences between DVS, DSS, and the agencies within DSS, the New York City Department of Homeless Services, and the Human Resources Administration, DHS and HRA, as it pertains to addressing veteran homelessness. DHS, under DSS, manages the city's overall homeless shelter network, which includes more than 450 shelters and transitional housing facilities for those experiencing housing insecurity. The DHS portfolio includes emergency shelter intake, case management, and rehousing initiatives for the general population. Conversely, DVS does not directly operate homeless shelters. Rather, DVS serves as the primary agency for coordinating services tailored specifically to veterans, with an emphasis on those who are not eligible for VA health care. DHS, in partnership with the VA, takes the lead with most veterans who are eligible for VA health care. We at DVS stand on the last line of defense for our brothers and sisters when many other programs, benefits, and organizations are not available. A notable distinction is the Borden Avenue Veterans Residence, the only dedicated homeless shelter for veterans in New York City. The Borden Avenue Residence provides veteran-specific supportive services, such as benefits navigation, peer mentorship, and pathways to permanent supportive housing that are tailored to the unique needs of former U.S. military service members. Out of the 225 beds in Borden, all of which are enclosed in their own private pods thanks to leadership from the Veterans Committee and DHS, 154 beds are subsidized by the VA, while 71 beds are subsidized by the city. While all other homeless shelters in the city are managed by DHS, DVS plays a crucial role in ensuring that veterans in these facilities receive the specialized care and housing services that they need. DVS works alongside DSS and DHS to connect veterans experiencing homelessness with available housing subsidies, supportive housing programs, and VA resources. Additionally, HRA, another division within DSS, administers key benefits programs such as public assistance, rental assistance, and healthcare support. DVS bridges the gap between our clients and DSS's offerings by ensuring that veterans can navigate these resources while also recommending targeted actions and policies that address their unique circumstances. In summary, while DHS and HRA oversee the city's broader homeless services and benefit programs, DVS ensures that veterans receive the tailored support they deserve. As we continue our efforts to address veteran homelessness, it is critical to acknowledge the larger trends influencing the homeless veteran population in New York City. Several key factors contribute to the ongoing challenges we face, including the migration of out-of-state veterans seeking support from New York City, the introduction of new federal tools like the Status Query and Response Exchange System, SQUARES, and evolving housing and economic conditions. New York City has long been recognized for its robust social safety net and veteran-specific social support services, making it an attractive destination for veterans experiencing homelessness from across the nation. Unlike many other states, New York City offers a more comprehensive range of benefits, including rental assistance, healthcare access, food security programs, and legal services, many of which are accessible regardless of prior residency. Additionally, the availability of veteran-specific housing programs such as HUD-VASH and City FEPS, combined with strong local partnerships between city agencies and veteran service organizations, has made the city a national leader in veteran homelessness reduction efforts. However, this reputation also presents unique challenges as we see a growing trend of veterans from out of the state arriving in New York City specifically to seek these resources. Many of these individuals are ineligible for federal VA benefits due to discharge status, length of service, or other criteria, making them more reliant on city and state level assistance programs. This influx of new veterans places additional strain on our homeless shelter system, case management resources, and housing subsidies, underscoring the need for increased funding and interagency coordination to ensure that all veterans, regardless of where they come from, receive the support they need to achieve housing stability. It is important to note that New York City proudly has the most liberal definition of a veteran in the country. A person who has served in the armed forces is a veteran in the eyes of the city of New York, regardless of their length of service, component of service, or active duty, guard, reserve, and character of discharge. Putting this all together, the DVS Housing Support Services team estimates that each year roughly 35% of the veterans we serve did not live in New York City 1 year prior to becoming homeless. A sizable population elected to move here after housing insecurity was on the horizon. And to repeat something that was already mentioned, 40% of all homeless veterans in New York City are not eligible for VA health care. One of the most significant advancements in veteran homelessness intervention has been the integration of the VA's Status Query and Response Exchange System, or SQUARES, into the workflow of DHS. SQUARES is a web-based application that allows VA employees and external organizations, including homeless service providers, law enforcement agencies, and local, state, and federal agencies, to screen a list of clients in order to identify those clients who are veterans. SQUARES also relays identified veterans' eligibility for VA health care. Through SQUARES, DHS intake centers can now quickly and accurately identify whether a homeless individual is a veteran, enabling faster connections to VA benefits, healthcare, and housing support programs. The system works by allowing users to submit identity attributes such as name, date of birth, social security number, and gender, and receive real-time information regarding the individual's VA eligibility. This streamlined process ensures that veterans are not mistakenly classified as non-veterans, which in the past led to delays in accessing critical resources. The introduction of SQUARES into DHS workflows represents a major step forward in ensuring that every veteran who interacts with New York City's shelter system is properly identified and connected to available federal and local resources. However, ongoing training and system improvements are necessary to maximize its effectiveness, particularly in cases where veterans are ineligible for VA services and must rely on city and state programs. As we look to the future, it is crucial that we continue refining our intake and identification processes, expand our capacity to serve out-of-state veterans, and champion sustained funding from all sources to meet the growing demand for veteran-specific homelessness support. By addressing these larger trends with strategic planning and interagency collaboration, we can build upon our successes and ensure that New York City remains a leader in providing housing stability and care for all veterans in need. The number of veterans in New York City's shelter system has declined by more than 85% over the past 13 years, from 4,677 in 2011 to 624 in 2024, 3 of whom were street homeless according to the 2024 point-in-time count. That being said, reaching a goal of functional zero, that is 400 or fewer veterans in the shelter system, has been elusive. The combination of housing insecure veterans from across America coming to New York City, coupled with the fact that what remains of what was almost 5,000 homeless veterans more than a decade ago, is a group that is disproportionately complex cases. This makes the work vital. We will reach and maintain a count lower than 400 in the future. It will be hard. This is an all-hands-on-deck situation. 3 suggestions for how the City Council can help us get there. Discretionary funding. Provide discretionary funding for nonprofits that do work with veterans who are justice involved. I'm speaking of those in Veterans Treatment Court, specifically mentorship organizations for Veteran Treatment Court participants, groups that visit veterans who are detained at the Veterans Wing at Rikers Correctional Facility, nonprofits that serve veterans who are on parole, and groups that work with New York City veterans who were recently released from incarceration. The nexus between those who are justice involved and those experiencing housing insecurity is real. We pray that the City Council can help buoy those organizations that are committed to providing this assistance. Local Law 37 questions. Ask the Local Law 37 of 2024 questions on your constituent intake forms in your district offices. These questions are voluntary, and they are, to paraphrase, have you or any member of your household served in the Armed Forces, National Guard, or Reserve of the United States? Next question. Do you consent to the NYC Department of Veteran Services contacting you regarding services and resources for veterans? In a city where only 24.1% of all veterans self-identify, we cannot help veterans combat housing insecurity when we do not know who they are. Further, a critical aspect of this work is reaching a veteran and veteran family to prevent them from becoming housing insecure in the first place. In addition to including these questions in your intake forms, I humbly beg you to ask other social services entities in your networks to do the same thing. DVS is engaging social service entities about this as well. Success is if all groups that provide social services of any nature, elected officials, agencies, community benefit organizations, etc., ask these questions. Use VA SQUARES. SQUARES, which once again stands for Status Query and Response Exchange System. It can be found online at va.gov/homeless/squares. Once again, it's va.gov/homeless/squares. It's a VA web application that allows public and nonprofit social services providers to screen all adult clients for veteran status and VA healthcare eligibility. After being granted access, an organization can either input a client's information individually or bulk upload the information from an Excel file. The VA tool, which captures no information, it is a pass-through, then relays which clients on the list are veterans and whether they are eligible for VA healthcare. Once you learn whether that client is a veteran, it is your discretion how you engage that individual. Over the past 2.5 years, we've worked with DHS as they've rolled out using SQUARES. We've learned that for every shelter client who tells DHS they are a veteran, one does not. This is a contributory reason to the uptick in the veteran point in time count from 2023, which is 567 veterans, to 2024, 624 veterans, as our efforts slowly advance from crawl to walk to run. The uptick is something I'm not happy about. We don't want any homeless veterans in New York City, America, or the world. That said, I am happy, along with our DHS colleagues, to have a stronger handle on exactly who our homeless veteran population is, or are. We are the first major city in America to do this, screening all adult shelter clients for veteran status. I give eternal credit to the DHS Assistant Commissioner Sonia Russell, DHS Administrator Jocelyn Carter, and DSS Commissioner Molly Wassau Park for making this decision. I encourage you and all social service providers to do the same. Who knows how many veteran and military families you've already served in the past? You just didn't know it. Once you do know, you will be surprised at how many of our brothers and sisters come into the light when you simply talk to them and address it. Once again, the website for VA SQUARES is va.gov/homeless/squares. DVS is happy to advise any city council member, government agency, or nonprofit social service provider looking to leverage this asset. In conclusion, the commitment by New York City to combat veteran homelessness through collaborative efforts with local, state, and federal resources is essential for providing stable housing, supportive services, and ensuring the well-being of veterans who have served the nation. We recognize that the path to achieving this success lies in fostering effective communication and synergy amongst all stakeholders, city, state, and federal, public, private, and nonprofit. Furthermore, by working collaboratively and transparently, we can ensure that our city thrives, prospers, and provides a brighter future for all who call it home, especially our veterans and their families. Together, we can overcome challenges, seize opportunities, and build a stronger, more resilient, and inclusive New York City that benefits every member of our diverse and vibrant ecosystem. I urge you all to please reach out to me or our Senior Advisor for Intergovernmental Affairs, Jason Lochran. Please view us as a tool to help navigate your legislative ideas and act as an optimizer to your historic and future success. As an aside, I'd like to remind all who hear these remarks that the deadline to apply for City Council discretionary funding is today, February 19th at 5 p.m., February 19th at 5 p.m. Please visit nyc.gov/vetcouncilfunding to learn more. nyc.gov/vetcouncilfunding. Separately, the deadline to apply to join one's community board for those who live in Manhattan is February 28th. Deadline for those who live in the Bronx is March 9th. There is no deadline for Staten Island residents. Applications to join Richmond County community boards are rolling. The deadline to apply to join community boards in Queens and Brooklyn this year has already passed. It was on February 14th. Please visit nyc.gov/vetcommunityboards to learn more. nyc.gov/vetcommunityboards. Lastly, the New York City Department of Veteran Services can be reached by telephone at 212-416-5250. It's 212-416-5250. Email at connect@veterans.nyc.gov. It's connect@veterans.nyc.gov. Via social media, the handle is @NYCVeterans. It's @NYCVeterans. And online, it is nyc.gov/vets, nyc.gov/vets. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for speed reading at this point. He's the fastest reader this side of the Mississippi, but we want to thank you again for your excellent and thorough testimony. I want to just turn it over to Ina Vernikov, Councilmember Vernikov, I'm sorry, who talk about, that was a good one. Ina Vernikov will talk about Intro 465, her intro.
Can you hear me?
I got you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair. Before I talk about my bill, I'd just like to quickly acknowledge my Legislative Director, Troy Olson, who is a veteran and served our country in Afghanistan with honor. So I just wanted to thank him for his service. Thank you, Troy. It is great to see Introduction 465 before this committee today. Intro 465 would require HPD to submit reports on veteran preference and Mitchell-Lama developments. The rationale for this bill is simple. This is a great resource already in place for those who have served our country, and too many are missing out on it. New York City is home to more than 100,000 veterans, including over 30,000 in the borough of Brooklyn. Our veterans are as diverse as the city they reside in. The Veterans Preference and Mitchell-Lama waiting list for housing is one of the great tools we have to not only combat veterans' homelessness, but also do so in a way that is permanent, affordable, and sustainable, and keeps veterans in our city at a time when the cost of living is far too high. Yet, all too often, the veteran preference falls by the wayside. At a recent hearing of this committee, Commissioner Hendon said that the top issue facing the city's veterans is not self-identifying as a veteran. For instance, a 2012 report by the Office of the State Comptroller reviewed 18 sampled Mitchell-Lama housing developments with open waiting lists. These developments filled 332 vacancies, but only 14 of them which were filled by a veteran. Those findings also found that veterans were passed over for vacancies at some locations, including 2 developments in Manhattan, one of which has now closed their list entirely as of early 2024. This is very unfortunate. Both the city and veterans residing in our 5 boroughs are missing out on this, and we need to do a better job of ensuring this preference is known about and that there's accountability on these lists, assuring that veterans' preference is actually taking place on selections. I'd like to thank Chairman Holden and the committee for hearing this bill and discussing veterans' housing and homelessness today, and I ask that my colleagues sign on to Intro 465. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council Member. I just want to turn it over to Council Member Nurse, who has to another engagement and has to leave, so we're going to put her on first. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and I appreciate the option to bump up earlier. I'm sorry I can't attend the whole hearing. I have a previous standing commitment. One, I just want to commend you for what you laid out in your speech and the work that you all are doing. I am a little concerned about what's happening at the federal level in the lack of clarity and confusion and chaos that is being directed towards the VA. And as a daughter of veterans and having multiple family members who rely on the VA, I'm very concerned about that. We should be very clear and consistent with our veterans that they're going to be supported both in their medical services and also in their housing. I wanted to ask about what your interaction is with other agencies regarding supportive housing units, because there are hundreds that are sitting vacant. And I know that you all aren't running and managing housing, but what are the communications about trying to get some of our homeless veterans into some of these units? And are you all at all helping veterans fill out the 2010 E-form? Are you helping the folks fill out these applications?
I'll start a little bit. Thank you so much for that question, Councilman. And once again, thank you just for being in here as a family member, as a military family member. We appreciate you for that. I'll start a little bit and defer to Lamar DeSonia for more of this. We do work with folks as far as the 2010 E. That's one thing. One of the big issues with us is we went from having roughly 5,000 or so, just under 5,000 homeless veterans, to now it's just over 600. Right now, we're dealing with a group where you have folks with some serious, complex needs, and there's reluctance often to move from emergency into supportive. And so what we're working on is to make sure folks can see the entire pathway. In other words, it's not just you go into supportive, you just stay there. It's if you see yourself getting too affordable, getting to ownership, we want to be able to cast that light to be able to show them what the paths are. Right now, we list things at nyc.gov/vetladder, but I'm so happy that for us, we just onboarded 2 new coordinators for housing just last month. And so that gives us the ability to have one coordinator take the additional duty on of being our affordable housing / ownership person. And so what we're saying to ourselves is we can message to our veterans in shelter, hey, look, don't think of it as just supportive housing the way you typically think of it. This is step 1 housing. Let me make sure we've been with you every step of the way for emergency housing, where you are right now at step 0. Supportive housing is step 1. Here's how we can stand with you for affordable and stand with you for ownership. I personally feel, and I'm going to defer to Sonia, to Lamar to add to this, one of the key issues is if I don't see what the long goal is, why not just stay here? And we want to break that. We really want to show folks, no, look, we're with you every step of the way, and here's how we're with you now in emergency, but here's how we can be with you in supportive, but to make sure that you are good to go to do all the things you need to do to be able to be right in affordable and right in ownership. So I think that's what we're driving for right now.
Yeah, and there are developments that now have both supportive and mixed market and other non-supportive affordable units that will work with people in supportive to transition them over into the existing buildings, so they don't have to move far. So ownership might not be attainable for everyone, but there are opportunities to move out of supportive housing, and some supportive housing is really, really nice. I mean, very nice looking. And because of these folks having a complex range of issues, supportive housing can be a long-term place that is viable, and we should work to destigmatize that a bit. But I appreciate your time. Thank you, and thank you, Chair.
Can I ask one other thing real quick? The secret sauce of this team is the high-touch navigator support. That's really it. And so we already have strong touches with those we assist. And so now it's us saying, okay, look, we can be there with you in this high-touch way, not just for emergency and for supportive, but we got you for these others. And we think that that can help, just that trust, that bond. So I just want to say that.
All right, thanks, Commissioner. We've been joined by Councilmember Joanne Ariola. Let me just get into some questions just talking about supportive housing. Last time we visited, it was last year, we visited location of supportive housing in the Bronx. And so surprisingly, they had some vacancies. So we walked into some empty apartments. And they're small apartments, but they're nice. It's a nice neighborhood. There's a good sense of neighborhood around that shelter. So it was surprising that they were saying, well, look, we have vacancies. It's the next step of affordable housing, transitional housing. That's a weak link here. So, I could, the associate commissioner, I could ask, how do we, what's the weakest link in this chain? Because we heard, and I don't know if it's all over the city, but supportive housing, there are vacancies. Do you agree with that, or are you hearing that?
Yes, I do agree. Let me just introduce myself again. Associate Commissioner Sonia Russell. So thank you, Chairman Holden. I do agree with you. However, with respect to the veterans, we have realized, or we have data that supports that our veterans do move out with supportive housing. It is the number 2 most housing that our veterans will exit shelter with. So for fiscal year 24, we had over 122 veterans move out into supportive housing. So that is at least 20 less than those that moved out.
And they're getting their own places, or how does this work? After they move out of supportive, where are they going?
So we don't track specifically where they go once they leave supportive housing, but we do focus on ensuring that they leave shelter by way of supportive housing or City for HEPS or what's most appropriate to them.
So just to follow up on that, so you don't have an exit form where you say, well, you're leaving our supportive housing. Can we find out where you're going so we can keep in touch with you to see how you're doing? You don't have that form?
So because DHS does not oversee supportive housing, those are with providers, we don't track our veterans once they move.
But maybe we should. That's a suggestion that possibly we'd be able to track if they're doing well, if they're not. Sometimes they stay in New York City sometimes, maybe most of the time. It's just that how did they find housing? What did you help? Did the providers help? It's probably all of the above.
Yes, we do. As Councilmember Nurse mentioned, our providers do assist our veterans by having them complete the CAP survey, which is the Coordinated Assessment Placement. So once the CAP survey is completed, if a veteran is eligible for supportive housing services, we do complete that on behalf of the client, which enables them to move into supportive housing. And for the agency's Veteran Services Unit, in which I oversee, we do send out mailings to the veterans that give them an opportunity in which to connect back to us if they need to. We give them information from DVS. So we want to ensure that they remain in their current living situation, but with respect to tracking them, as you have mentioned, that's something that we can definitely take into consideration with our commissioner.
Yeah, there should be some kind of chain where we could, even DVS having that information because we do have a communications problem, especially with veterans, and we owe it to them to do the best we can on that.
But understand, supportive housing is a level of permanent housing. So, it's just it's just housing that has wraparound services or support services on site for those who need it. Specifically, when someone enters into a supportive housing unit, it's primarily because they need additional services. So if we find a veteran who would benefit from perhaps mental health or substance abuse, supportive housing is a great avenue for them to exit because they still have that level of coordinated care and case management that will enable them to not return back into the shelter system,
Right.
but rather remain at the supportive housing.
But each veteran that we spoke to said they want to move on from that. They have that urge to just get a larger place. 'Cause many times it's very small, and they have certain rules. Obviously, it's not really, they don't feel like they're independent. So if they graduate and they're ready, let's say they've been there a year or so, and they want to move on. And most people would want that. They want to feel like they're on their own.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's and by the way, the forms that, let's say for homeless people, they have to go to your office, right, to apply for shelter. They can't do it online.
I'm sorry, you're referring to CAPS?
Yes.
So CAPS is not only specific at Department of Homeless Services with our providers, but other entities and organizations such as hospitals and other city agencies have the ability to assist clients with CAPS. So it's not only, you don't only have to have it completed when you're in shelter, you can have community-based organizations also assist with that. But we primarily use it at our shelters to assist our clients.
But we tried to look out online and getting the form, and we couldn't. So it says you have to go to Department of DSS or go somewhere. Like it's probably more. It's very difficult if you're disabled or have issues in transportation. So there's no form that I could get online.
I would have to get back to you, sir. I'm not
Yeah,
certain, but that's definitely
and
something.
any form, the CAPS, does it have a little box for veterans?
That's a great question. It might, but again, let me get
Can you
back to
see
you
if we
that.
can get that in there?
If not, then we can definitely look at
Yeah,
that.
you can change, you just put a little box, are you a veteran? Because this is a very important issue for this committee, and especially with only 24% self-identifying, veterans that are self-identify, we need a lot of work on that.
Absolutely.
And so that's why some of these bills aim to do that, especially community board, trying to get a veterans committee on the community board, because then we can find out where they are, because if we only know where 24% of veterans are, or at least are here, we don't really have an accurate picture. So if you could look at that and get back to me on that, because that's an important aspect.
Yes, sir, I can do that.
Let me ask the commissioners, if we want to talk about some of your, how does DVS track or engage with street homeless veterans who may not be connected to services? I mean, obviously they're not many times because they are on the street. How does that work in the terms of working, coordinating with Department of Homeless Services or DSS with DVS?
So sorry, for the
Good afternoon, Chair. Let me introduce myself again. I'm Lamar Wheeler. I'm the Executive Director for Housing and Support Services for DVS. How we interact with and coordinate with DHS in regards to street homeless veterans. We have deployed to where their locations are, made verification that they were veterans through this Square system. It's very handy.
So social services contacts you, or you'll check in with them periodically?
It can happen at different levels. Street outreach can contact us directly, or citizen contacts us and says, I saw a veteran in the subway. If we're the first contact with that individual, we advise DHS.
what has to be said here, Mr. Chair, is you have some bad actors out here who present themselves as though they're veterans, but they turn out to not be. I just want to call that out. And so sometimes, look, even at our point in time count numbers, we're only 3 of the 624 from that point in time count were street homeless. And in prior years, we're at less than 10 over the past several years of street homeless in a given year. And so there are times when you have someone on the street may see this person and say they're a veteran, but you start to drill down and you realize, no, this is just someone saying that for whatever other reasons. I just want to call that out.
Yeah, but word of mouth sometimes, if somebody would approach them and just ask, or they might be wearing a veteran hat, or they might, that's, anything that they can identify them is important, so we get them off the streets and into some services. So, given the many local, state, and federal programs available, how does DVS help veterans choose the most appropriate housing or service option?
We do that, we do that by assessment. We assess the situation, we look at their active duty service, we take a look at the current needs that they are either stating or based on the information we're able to obtain about their, maybe some of their conditions that exist.
Is this done mostly on the phone, or do you interview them in person?
We interview them in person, that's an in-person.
You do in person, and you talk to them and you find out, how do you evaluate? Let's say, they're talking to you, you might say, well, I think you need to see a doctor, or, obviously you have to look at the services they need, and many times, especially if somebody's living on the street, we want to have a good medical checkup.
It's not readily apparent, you're correct, sir.
Right.
However, the individuals that are in shelter, that service is part of their process in shelter to make those determinations, those assessments take place. There are social workers at the sites. If it is an individual that we are not certain about, we certainly would encourage that individual and help them navigate that process.
So if you find out like a veteran didn't self-identify, let's say initially, and then they've been in the shelter system throughout, and you find out they're a veteran, do you work on the transfer with the Department of Social Services to try to get them supportive housing, or just into boarding? Tell us how that works.
If I may, so I do want to give credit to Commissioner Hendon for introducing us to Squares, because I do have to say, since the utilization of Squares, it has allowed us to identify veterans throughout the shelter system. And something that we encounter is that not all veterans, for an array of reasons, might not self-identify as a veteran. However, when we utilize Squares and we get information that that individual is in fact a veteran, it allows us to reach out to that person and let them know that we have information that indicates that they are a veteran, and we have services that are specific to them, and we want to encourage them to take advantage of those services. And
Does that happen quite often, or do you have any numbers on that? How many you found out were in the system and they shouldn't have been in there? They've been in for years, and they should have been in supportive or better conditions, let's say.
So we recently started utilizing Squares, I believe it was in 23. So we do have data. Unfortunately, I would have to get back to and provide that data. But we do have data that indicates that clients have come into the system and not identified as a veteran. And again, once we have the information that identifies them as such, we outreach that individual, and we explain to them the services that we provide or that's available to them as a veteran, and we want to ensure that they take advantage of all of that.
All right, it's the same thing with veteran treatment courts. Many times, the veterans who have run in with the law or they're incarcerated, many times they don't know about veteran treatment courts. So we have to, obviously DVS has to, but we really don't have that information, and many times the police or the DAs don't have it.
I have to say this, Mr. Chair, and Sonia, we can put it on the table right now. There are instances where DHS will reach out to the person, they identify them through Squares, they didn't know them otherwise, and the person says, thank you, but it's okay.
But they don't want.
They don't want, so they want to stay in the shelter.
Yeah.
That's a real
Yeah,
thing.
we can't make them. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But it's really where if they know that they'll get better treatment because they are veterans.
And we've had some that will, say, yes, please change my status, and I wish to identify as a veteran. So
Okay.
we have more that say yes than say no. And again, it's the outreach that we do to explain to them the benefits that's available to them while they are at, with New York City Department of Homeless Services.
All right, let's talk about Borden Avenue, because we get, we visited there a number of times. We have a connection there. We certainly, by the way, Mayor Adams did, when I reached out to him about the individual rooms for the veterans there, instead of being in the open, in a congregate setting, he invested, DHS and through DHS at that time, Commissioner Jenkins invested in those cubicles or those rooms, and that's helped. So I want to give credit to the mayor, because I reached out to him, I photographed what I saw at Veterans, at the Borden Avenue Veterans, and he made it, within months, we had it all set up, so, DHS gets credit, but certainly, so does the mayor, so I just want to put that out there on the record. So we heard about conditions, every time we go there, there's complaints, we know that there's been a slight upgrade in the food, we want to get the kitchen fully operational, where we can get, because I know I ran into a lot of chefs, wannabe chefs, who said, "Hey, look, I went to a culinary school. I could cook. I would love to practice and probably get a job as a chef in a restaurant, and it's my passion. And we have a working kitchen, but I can't use it." I know there's classes in there in Borden from time to time, but I don't know if we have a full operational, or we should have a full operational kitchen. I know the food's been upgraded.
Yes, sir.
From those little plastic trays.
Correct.
So now we get stainless steel trays with hot food, but it's
That's-
brought in.
Yes, that is correct.
So my goal, before I leave as chair this year, is to try to get that kitchen operational. And I know it's a budgetary item, and that's what we're going to be negotiating now. But we've gotten complaints about the conditions there, the cleanliness, I get veterans who tell me that this person shouldn't be in there, that person should be in a hospital because they really need treatment. And, so we get complaints, and it's really kind of the same complaints. So if you could just talk about, Commissioner, what you've seen and what areas need to be improved, and Associate Commissioner, if you can talk about it a little bit in your visits to Borden. Like what can we fix? What would you like to see?
I would like to see more housing for our veterans and
Right.
all non-veterans.
Well, we all would like that, but let's say fixing the conditions at Borden.
So, we have made some significant changes at Borden since last we spoke. Again, the 233 pods have since been erected. And working with ICL, who is the provider at that location, we have since painted the entire facility so that it is aesthetically pleasing. We have upgraded the wait space, so those veterans who are coming in have a nice wait space. We have upgraded the recreation area, including exercise equipment. So again, those veterans that are inside, they have a space in which they could read a book and or exercise as a form of activity. So there has been some significant changes since the last time, and we invite the City Council out for a visit if time allows you to do so. As it relates to the complaints, while we recognize there are some complaints, we take them on a case-by-case basis. We have had a security assessment done at the location, and we are currently working on enacting some of those recommendations. One of the recommendations was training for the staff on how to deal with individuals that are involved in physical altercations. So we are working currently with the Department of Homeland Services Police Department to provide that training. The security provider also has an annual training for its staff. So it is an ongoing issue that we have that we continue to
How
provide
many
support.
counselors does Borden have, that full-time counselors?
Social workers or staff?
Either.
Well, I can't speak to the number of staff. Unfortunately, I can get back to you with the exact number, but Borden does have a medical nurse practitioner on site. They have a psychiatric nurse practitioner. They have social workers that are on site that, again, assist with clients who may be experiencing issues or difficulties while they're there.
But tell me the procedures there, because I always get a few veterans who want to pull me aside and talk about how they're not getting treatment, they're not getting the mental health, they're not getting the services. So I can only listen, and I can just reach out, but it's frustrating, and because I really want to know what the structure is like. Do you interview, does a provider interview the clients there on a regular basis. That means there's an open door policy. There's appointments being made. They sit with the individual to try to go over their lives. Like let's leave here and let's get supportive. Let's go to the next step. You know, how often is that?
So yes, all of our providers, not only at Borden, but for all shelter providers, are required to meet with residents at least twice a month. Some of them may meet with them a little bit more frequently. And it's during that time in which we assess where that person is, what assistance they may need, where they are, and how to make appropriate referrals. And I want to stress the importance of choice. Our clients, including our veterans, have a choice. So while there is a clinic on site at Borden, if they so chooses to utilize it, it's available to them. Some of them come into the facility already with a medical provider attached to them. And what we ask that our providers do is reach out to that medical provider so that they can collaborate and work in conjunction to ensure that that person is getting their services.
So they have to reach out to the client twice a month.
At a
They have
minimum,
to.
sir, yes.
And if they refuse to meet, then you don't do anything.
Well, no, we continue, we don't, they may refuse to meet, but we encourage them. There is
Okay.
always some sort of outreach to find out why they are refusing. So while they may refuse to meet with one level of staff, there may be the program director or the social worker or the counselor may reach out and say, hey, you missed your appointment, how can we help you?
Yeah, and there's ways to do this. If you know that somebody is keeping to themselves, they don't want to meet, they don't want to talk to people, they're loners. There's a way that we can get doctors or counselors to try to reach out to them.
Correct.
And I mean, you know all the methods, and but the Commissioner, let me ask you about DVS. What do you have a liaison who will go in there and check in on a regular basis to see how are these guys doing?
Yeah, I'll say a little bit, not to the mark. We have folks who have desk space over there as far as working out of board, and so we do make sure we maintain strong line of communication there. When I think about things in Borden, for me, I'm with Sonia in that we like to see more move-outs. So for us, it's
Right.
doing what we can to keep working with our people on that issue. We'd like to
That's
see-
my next
yeah.
question, because what's the turnover rate there? How many people do we have leaving on an average basis from Borden per year?
I'll defer to DHS on that one, because what's key for us is, remember with DVS, a lot of our work is with the folks who are not eligible for VA healthcare. So it's the folks who we stand in that gap. And I know for our team, one housing coordinator does about 12 to 15 move-outs per quarter. That's the
12
about 12 to 15
12
move-outs
to 15 per quarter.
per
Okay.
housing coordinator. So we're so happy to have 2 people we just onboarded a few weeks ago. Prior to that, we had one other person who started
So
a few months
about
before
60
that. So-
a year turnover,
Approximately.
60, let's say, and then they move on to supportive?
They could move on to supportive. That's part of the process. And the initial process is to determine what they're eligible for. And again, the choice. What do they want to do?
Because what I learned that, I visited shelters around the city, and when I visited the veteran shelter, the men seem to offer a lot. That means they could go into and get a job at pretty high level. I've very, very, talented individuals. I mean, you don't see that in many shelters. What I'm seeing in the Borden, that's what separates them, and that's why we should try to get. There's a lot of unions that have training facilities in that area of Long Island City. It's in walking distance, in fact. So if we can coordinate with those unions to try to get apprenticeships and training, these individuals in Borden especially have a lot to offer, because many times one guy was in the Marines 10 years, another guy was 15 years, and they're very talented in technology and other areas. So they've been trained, and I just think it's to have men sitting around a lot, it's a shame. So if we could get really a jobs program, I guess you have some of that.
Yes, ICL does have an employment workshop that they host for their veterans as well. So I can definitely speak to their leadership specifically about the
Yeah,
apprenticeships.
I mentioned it to ICL, but I know, again, that it's a limited, so if we can get actual help from your agency or DVS to try to just fill in the gaps, and coordinate. We'll bring you to some of the unions to talk about, and to I visited the union apprenticeship programs, and they're magnificent. Greatest, they have beautiful spaces, and there's 3 or 4 right within walking distance of Borden. It seems like a perfect marriage there. So if you-
Absolutely, we're
yeah.
glad to do so.
All right. And any other questions?
Yes.
Okay. Christy Marmorato.
Hi. So just to, again, just touch on, what is the general length of time for a stay at a veterans homeless shelter?
That's a good question. It really depends on how ready the individual is for housing placement. And sometimes the holdup is not having all the necessary documentation for that process. For processing for a housing subsidy, there are certain documents that are required.
Okay.
So
And- I'm sorry, go ahead.
If I may, so specifically for the veterans in shelter, and again, not specific to Borden, but the average length of stay for single veterans is 295 days. For families with children is 227 days, and for adult families is 262 days.
That's a very long time.
It is, but as Lamar pointed out, the importance of meeting with these veterans, and while our goal is to assist them in moving out as expeditiously as possible, we have to understand that they are in shelter for a reason. There are circumstances that brought them there, and we want to ensure that we are meeting their needs where they are and how we can help stabilize them. A number of our veterans, again, as Chair has pointed out, suffer from mental illness. So it's important for us to ensure that they're stable, that once they move out into independent living, that they stay in their homes, whether it's supportive housing, whether it's by way of City for HEPS, by way of CUT-VASH through CCM. So it's important why we want to make sure that those individuals, while it may take a little bit longer, where you see the 295, we want to ensure that they are ready to stay out into the independent living.
Yeah, I lived it. My uncle, he had a lot of challenges. And when he was good, he was amazing. And then when he wasn't, he was not. So it's very disheartening to see and hear that these, and especially when he was in shelters, it was not really a good outcome for him. But once he went on to the more stabilized, supportive housing, and he was able to get the services that he required, he was amazing.
I'm glad to hear that.
May
Yeah,
I interject
sure.
something, Councilwoman? I think another piece of this too is that, you may have someone who's says, no, I don't want supportive, I want to go straight to affordable, I don't want to go to something that's a supportive environment. That's an element. And then another element, which is beyond us, is the 1.4% vacancy rate right now, as far as this lack of availability. So these are other things that may compound it as far as that stat. I just have to say that.
Yeah, and to hear that other council member districts are opposed to veteran homeless shelters and veteran housing, when my community hears that, District 13, they are appalled by that. And we welcome any kind of veteran supportive housing, shelters, we welcome that.
Thank you.
I would love for you to give me a list of organizations. I have some properties that would be a good fit for my community and for veterans. So if you can try and get in touch with me, I'd appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
And I just have one more question. So
Certainly.
at these shelters, how many of the people working there are actually veterans themselves? Like, is there like a process to give them a job opportunity once they leave the shelter, or maybe have them working as they're living there?
So, again, not only specific to veterans, but for all of our residents that need support, the providers work with each and every one of them to secure not only housing, but employment. So if someone enters shelter and they have a skill set that can help them land a job, we work with them. There are employment workshops. We connect with our sister agencies at HRA through Business Link. So we do work with our veterans and non-veterans to ensure that they are employed if they are able to do so. And again, linking them to whatever services that they may need that is specific to them as individuals, as well as their families, if it's a families with children household.
Okay.
And I would just like to address that the staff that are embedded at Borden Avenue, that's part of their tasking. They're there 2-3 times a week. And we made a concerted effort to just hire veterans.
That's great.
For Borden
I like
Avenue.
to hear that. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Just a few more questions, and then we'll go on to the public. Let's talk about persistent homelessness and service gaps. Despite the array of programs and supports, New York City still reported an increase in veteran homelessness in 2024. What does DVS think is the reason for this increase?
I think it's increased utilization of squares, Mr. Chair. What's been going on over the past really about 2.5 years is the cadence with which DHS is using squares, which is basically saying, let me take a list of all the folks who are in shelter system today. This is what all the folks in shelter are today, all the adults. Let's run them through this platform and see who the veterans are. The cadence it's slowly been increasing. It used to be just running that just every couple of months to every couple of weeks to now we're at a weekly place. And so as we've been increasing this cadence over time, when we know who more of these people are, that's reflected in the numbers. So I think that's why you've seen this escalation. I got to, once again, give the folks at DHS their roses. It's the only city in the country that does this as far as screening all adult shelter residents for veteran status.
Let's talk about advocacy and funding. What issues, when issues arrive, such as conditions at transitional housing sites, what advocacy role does DVS play, and how does DVS secure resources or interact with providers to make improvements?
So for us, we always tell our veterans and stakeholders we are not an advocacy organization. By charter, we are tasked to assist and inform veteran and military families in certain areas, from healthcare, housing, benefits, culture, education, employment. As part of that, what we'll do is we'll say, okay, we'll offer to connect that veteran if a veteran's complaining about something. Let's say a veteran's complaining about conditions going on at DHS. We can offer to connect them to our friends at DHS as far as, Sonia and her team. And let's say that veteran goes there and then they say, hey, I'm still running a brick wall. We then say, okay, here's the information as far as our members of the council who have oversight authority. Here's the information for the Inspector General also, who has authority there. And that's what we do. And it's not just a DHS specific situation. In other situations, we've come into this where step one is to connect that person with a complaint to the agency directly. Step two, if they feel like there's still an issue, to say, okay, here's the council committee that have oversight there, and here is the Inspector General group that has oversight there. And that's what we usually do in these scenarios. We've even done it for ourselves. So we tell folks the HRA IG is a person who has coverage for us. We make sure to give them your information too if someone has something that's about us, so that folks can be able to exhaust everything available to them.
So finally, I do have a question and this one is on the future plans and improvements. So, are there any immediate policy changes or new programs that you believe would most effectively reduce the number of homeless veterans in the city, and or improving their living conditions, or to help ensure that the veterans achieve long-term housing stability? Like what do we plan in the future to address that? And I know the answer is probably more affordable housing. It's always the answer, but let's say on the earlier levels. So I think definitely at one point we have to close Borden and get them right into supportive housing. That would, to me, they've earned that, rather than going into a shelter. By the way, just in my observations, what could be improved at that Borden is, I know it's sidetracked a little bit, but just you go in there, the lighting is fluorescent lighting. It's horrendous, and it's like an office. It's like a giant office. It probably was at one point before it was a shelter. So that I would say, and that's an inexpensive. That's my next suggestion, and if I could help with the funding, but it needs really a more residential lighting. That's one. That would help a lot. It's just the psyche of anybody living there. You live in fluorescent lighting for 24/7. It's not good. But anyway, let's talk about policy.
Yeah, I'll throw some things out there, and then I'll defer if Sonia the moment jump in on this. I think the original sin here is that it's, for us on the DVS side, is it's an unfunded mandate working with those who are not eligible for VA health care. And that's something where I just wish there was some sort of, but that's beyond us. It's a federal issue. Right. Because if we've got, each member of his team is doing 12 to 15 move-outs per quarter, you can see how more of his people could equate to larger numbers here, and recognize a lot of folks we are serving are specifically those who do not have VA healthcare coverage. So that's the top one from a policy standpoint, Mr. Chair. Another one I put out there is I mentioned in the testimony, more organizations, that are doing work within the system, as far as more groups that are going to board and are working with those veterans who are housing insecure, who are just as involved, et cetera. Like, I feel like that's one, you've seen us try to push folks to apply for funding through the Dwyer program, to be able to have resources to be able to help these folks. I'm telling everybody, got until 5 p.m. today to apply for city council funding, nyc.gov/vet council funding, to kind of get some funding through this means. So more organizations that are actually going into these sites, being with our people, I think is always a good thing. And the other one, something we're working on, is making it just to be very open about, here are the steps you need to take if you want to, as a volunteer, come into board or come into one of the sites that have our veterans. So that's something we're actively working on with our friends from DSS, as far as the right way to make sure we have this posted online or in visible places where if a veteran organization wants to go to board and to make, be it donations, be it some day of service, et cetera, that it can go through the right traps so we can have them come, but recognize a lot of the traps exist out of respect for people's privacy and confidentiality, because this is a residence for many folks. And so I think those are a few things that come to mind for ways that we can be of value, Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Yeah, Associate Commissioner, I just want to put one more thing out there. We wanted to donate items,
Yes.
and you know what I'm going to say.
I do, sir, I do.
We wanted to donate items, but we had to fill out, and everybody going in there had to fill out these disclaimer. What do they call it? Disclaimers?
NDAs, they're
Yeah.
non-disclosure agreements. So yes, and I want to say that I appreciate you and City Council and those that come into board and to provide donations. We are very appreciative. However, we do have a policy, and again, as Commissioner Hendon pointed out, it's for the safety and confidentiality of those that are in shelter. So to the extent that, we want to be able to ensure.
I know, but you see, to veterans, because these were veterans who were collecting for veterans, and they felt, wow, like I have to fill out all these forms, and I don't disagree with them that they were trying to do something, give, and then they put up the bureaucratic stuff was
And
put
it's
in front of them.
unfortunate, yeah.
And I'd just like to know what happened. Like the year before, we didn't have to do that. Now we have to. Is the lawyers getting involved, I guess, so, like it happens, or what?
So this was a policy that came about September 2024. So this was around the time in which you yourself, as well as FDNY, came into Borden. So we don't want to make it a pugilistic or come across as if though we are preventing those or adding additional layers of bureaucracy. But we have
Right.
privacy for our clients. Hence why we ask that these NDAs be signed in advance. And I even offered to meet with those entities that wanted to come in to explain it to them, so that they did not feel as if though we did not appreciate what they were doing, because we do. ICL as well as DHS, DSS are very appreciative of those that
Yeah,
support
so
our
you see how the
veterans.
miscommunications could.
Yes.
Because when you go there and you got to fill out this, here's some paperwork to fill out before we take your items. It's like almost like a kick in the head. So, just especially for veterans.
I understand.
Because veterans are trying to help veterans, and that's where I think sometimes bend a little. And do you want to mention something?
No, I agree with you 100%.
All right, because I heard you
No,
in the background.
No, I was saying that I agree with Bob 100%. It gives people, even when we go as council members to go visit homeless shelters, I go just because. I just want to say hello and see how everybody's doing and make sure everything's okay, everybody's happy. It's just passing by sort of thing. And when I'm stopped at the door, not with veterans, I'm talking homeless services, and I'm told I can't come in. Well, human instinct then tells you, what are you hiding? If I can't just come in and shake your hand and say, hi, want a cup of coffee? You want to sit down for a while and talk? Because that's how it used to be with my homeless shelters. I used to just be able to pop in and say hi, and sit down with the ladies and just talk and then go, and it was all okay. So when I'm stopped at the door and somebody tells me you can't, now in this instance that Bob is referring to, we took, as council members, we took donations in our districts. One particular lady in my district knitted I don't know how many hats, caps to wear. And we had to wait for special permission to get there. So it bothered people that I had to explain to them that we have to wait, you know, because they were anxious to hear. So I had to say, no, we got to wait our turn. We got to wait. I, of course, buttered it up and put a little frosting on it, not to make it sound like, because like I said, human instinct is to say, well, why aren't they letting you in? And I just don't understand that.
I totally understand that. So again, it's not about us hiding anything. Those that do not have the same intentions of wanting to help, we need to protect our client, and that being their temporary home. So while again, we are appreciative of the Veterans Association, City Council, and those who want to do right by our clients, those who mean well by our clients, we have to leverage that against those who might not want to, those who try to come into the facility and cause harm or disruption. So in order for us to, again, protect the privacy and a safe environment for those that are seeking shelter with DHS, we have to vet individuals before they come into our building. So I do want to say to City Council, we welcome you to come into our building, but understand that we do require, prior notice before you come so that we could, exactly, correct. Thank
Right.
you.
No, we get that, but again, there's
understand.
sometimes somebody has to make a decision. So you know what, these are veterans coming in, they're with 3 council members. We're gonna just let them come in, but because then veterans, we had a whole bunch of veterans that did a lot of work in their own time. They had to leave because they wouldn't sign, not one
Correct.
veteran would sign that.
And that's unfortunate.
And, no, but that should tell you something. But somebody's got to think on their feet a little bit and say, you know what, let's dispense with that for now because the council members are there. It's they've done a great thing, and we're not going to fill out paper, or we'll do it in advance, way in advance, and then we'll do it in a nice way. But yeah, so just sometimes there's a little bit of a human element here that needs to be addressed. But aside from that, I just want to ask you, and this is the last question, I think this is the last question, but what, Associate Commissioner, what would you do with Borden to improve it, other than what I said about the lighting? What do you think we can improve upon? And the Commissioner said we could probably, hopefully get the VA to work on, health, try to get more veterans health benefits. But what else could we do with Borden, to make it a little bit more of a better experience for veterans? In your visits, that's just sort of thinking
Well,
outside the box
I
here.
mean,
If we had more funding, let's say.
so of course, I would never turn down more funding. And again, I think the beautification process that we went through was based on my visits at Borden, which would let them
It
to
was an
painting.
improvement, so what
Yes.
you suggested was, it's better.
Yes, it is.
And again, if you would agree with me on the food, I would look at, certainly I'd have a partner. I know the Commissioner agrees with that. But, if we can get better food, because I remember one person, and the person's not there anymore at Borden, but this was a few years ago when I first became chair. I was told that we don't want to make it too comfortable for the veterans because they'll stay. And I'll never forget that. So somebody said that to me, who was in leadership. But that person's not there anymore. But it was said to me, and that's why I don't forget it. Because I said, well, that's terrible. That person shouldn't be with veterans then. Because I don't care if they were there 10 years, they deserve that. They deserve better than that.
Absolutely.
But they certainly don't deserve a comment like that. So that's the mentality that sometimes people have, especially, I don't know, again, I don't want to point fingers at who that was, but it was somebody in leadership. So that comment is disturbing.
That
But
is not our view. I just
that's
wanna
not your
make
view.
that
No,
clear.
I understand that
Correct.
because
Yes.
they're dedicated people, but there are some people that are not. They're
This is
doing it
true.
as a job, and sometimes they get frustrated. But they'll make comments. We don't want to make it too comfortable. So if we can come up with something, you know, any other improvements, we'll meet and we'll talk about it.
would
Obviously, the
welcome that.
lighting, if we can get funding from the council to try to improve that, funding from VA, whatever we can do. We'd like to work on that with you, and certainly the
Thank you.
mental health, and, you know, RTM, I think, you know, it's in the bills today. By the way, Commissioner, what do you think about our bills?
I thought you never asked.
I just,
you want, I mean,
yeah,
through it.
you
I
want to talk about
Let's
the
go. Let's get
bills,
that.
yeah.
Let's get it. Let's get it. For the legislation from Councilmember Vernikoff, this is the one that HPD, where it's basically asking the HPD to submit reports. Sorry, for the legislation, you know, from 465, you know, asking HPD to submit annual reports regarding those who are using the Veterans Preference for Mitchell Lama. We're optimistic we can use squares to help them identify the veterans who are in that system. The only issue with this one is there's a part here where it says that they need to, HPD needs to report on the number of applicants denied due to failure to provide satisfactory proof of veteran status. HPD doesn't deal with that. HPD only, the providers, the actual Mitchell Lama developments themselves, you know, screen for eligibility for Mitchell Lama, for the veterans preference. All they're screening for, did you serve during a time of war? Not, you know, so during a war period, do you have an honorable discharge, and do you live in New York? And so right now, that's one thing that HP doesn't have a handle on data-wise, and it's simply because it's something that it's more of a binary checkoff that's done by the housing developer themselves. But for these other things, it's something that we believe can't be. What we're talking about is we don't know if this happens if someone is already told these are the standards to apply for this preference, and it's not us but another entity, the developer that's obtaining these, and somebody says, okay, well, I have a dishonorable discharge, I'm not going to apply, or I didn't serve during a time of war, I'm not going to apply, I don't live in New York State, I'm not going to apply. So we you know, but that's the only issue with that one as far as 465. As far as 1171, with 1171, it's and this is the one about a feasibility study with doing reconciliation of traumatic memories, you know, the RTM protocol. With 1171, it's about the price point. You've got, you know, from doing our analysis, the fiscal impact is anywhere from 50,000. If it's just a feasibility study on the city rolling out RTM, you're looking at 50,000. It goes up to as high as 250,000 if you're saying we need to have some sort of validation of the therapy itself, which is more of an academic exercise and something that the Department of Health typically does not do. The Department of Health does not do those types of studies that validate healthcare modalities, but it's 50 to 250 based on where things stand with that. So you can see, yeah.
It's a pilot program that it would be a smaller study just to come up with the numbers, so we know how much that would have to be budgeted.
And so you're right, it's really the sliding scale where if it's just something we're just talking about, looking at the operational aspects of it, that's the lower end at the end of the day. If you're looking at can the city validate a particular healthcare modality, that's on the higher end. And then we run into issues with our friends at the Department of Health who say it is our policy to not, as a city, validate specific healthcare modalities. So, but yeah.
So are you in favor of the bill?
If we
It's a
can-
pilot program.
If we can pay for it, I mean, so Mr.
Not
Chair,
you
if we
pay
can-
for it, but if we could,
Yeah,
the city council would have to get, you know, along with the mayor, negotiate that. It's a pilot program, and we could put parameters in there, so it's still room for negotiation.
So for me, if we're able to, if the funding is not an issue, and if it's a focus on the operational aspects of rolling this out, then I think that's something
So
we can
if we had the
absolutely- yeah,
funding.
as long as we have the funding and it's
the
more of an
funding
operational.
No, the funding
piece.
has to be
Yeah.
attached to this,
Yeah.
that goes without saying. So, but you would support it, right?
That is correct, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
And the other one,
Okay, so for procurement and veteran-owned businesses and different things there, first off, we currently have the Veteran Business Leadership Association, which accounts for a lot of the things that are addressed in this legislation. And so it would really be saying instead of SBS being in the driver's seat, that DVS would be in the driver's seat on how this community is organized. And right now we do a lot of these things already with the Veteran Business Leadership Association. Beyond that, when it comes to the question of veteran status for those who are registering to do business with the city, MOX already does that. So the Mayor's Office of Contract Services, when someone's applying to be a part of the payee information portal, that is already something, that's already a question there, which it's a voluntary question, so whether folks are answering yes or no, it could be right back to other things we discussed, but that already occurs. So And then for the
So
community.
you're saying
Yeah.
this already exists, we don't need the bill?
I'm saying that we haven't, it's not codified. So this is not,
So this is
veteran-
codifying it.
if it were to be codified, we already do this, so it should be that it's DVS, that, because right now it's written in such a way where it's SBS should run this. If it is to be codified, then it should be codified where it's DVS that owns this piece. And just acknowledging we already do the identifier question for folks who are entities that are doing business with the city of New York. They're already asked that by Mox.
All right. All right, what about the community board, the 684?
Community board one, it's the same thing I always say where I love the spirit of the community board one. The worry, speaking beyond me, is we're setting a precedent where the council is now, dictating the governance of all community boards, and so it's about crossing that Rubicon. So for me, as far as the principle of it, very much in support of it. We already do work to liaise with the different community boards.
Then again,
regularly, et cetera.
with this bill, I'm trying to help with veterans who don't self-identify. And that, the more we could drive that home, how do we address that? I mean, I'm looking for answers, if you can come up with better answers. So on the community board level, 59 community boards, if we had a veterans committee to address some of it, and I'm not saying how many times they have to meet. All I'm saying is, get the word out, have a hearing, from time to time. It could be whatever, quarterly, it's up to each community board. We're not saying mandatory monthly meetings. No, we're saying, let's create a veterans committee, and let's try to deal with some of the issues. And the biggest one is only 24% of New York City veterans self-identify. So how do we address that? If you have some other ideas, be my guest.
You know me, my ideas are everyone should ask the question. As far as Local Law 37 questions, I think that everyone should use VA Squares. If you are a government entity or a social service provider, it's a nonprofit, you should use Squares as far as ways to identify. What's tough about this is I'm with you on it. I just worry that I know you spent many years in a community board. And so to have a law
30
coming
years.
down saying, 3 decades,
Right.
if a law comes down saying, community board, you must do X, I think it's the worry of what next, as far as it's the precedent. In other words, this is the first one, but then this could become,
Yeah,
it
see,
sets a
I
precedent
don't
now where
care,
you may
I
have.
don't care
but
about
I'm just
that.
calling that out, Mr. Chair.
Yeah,
as
but
far
I
as
know
the-
you
the
might,
issue.
the city government might have to care, but I think it's different dealing with veterans. That, we owe veterans. And if this is one little step on a community board, just to, recognize how we help veterans and how we help, and again, this could come up where, the community board's dealing with, I know this veteran that's on 34th Street in Manhattan, and he's on the street. And again, on a local level, it starts to deal with homelessness, it starts to deal with self-identification, it starts to deal with mental health issues. So I think any way we could have more conversations on this, on a local level.
And I'm supportive of this. I want to be clear. I am. I'm just flagging this larger issue that's beyond me on it as far as
It's funny, I'm hearing.
that's what I absolutely
But
clear about
I
Mr.
hear
Chair,
the
yeah.
same pushback from not only the council, I'm hearing it from the administration, and I'm wondering why. So that's why I don't understand. It's not, I thought this would fly through. And that's why we're dictating what community boards are saying, and I don't buy that. I'm just like saying, if we have a problem, and the mayor knows there's a problem, and if the city council knows that there's a problem with self-identification, tell me how we can deal with it. And I'm trying on a local level now with this bill. It's not just to have a veterans committee, it's to bring the issues forward. But if, and if leadership doesn't want this to go through, this bill will never see the light of day, because that's how this council works. If they don't want it to happen, it won't happen. So I have to convince people that it should happen. And I think that's my role as chair of this committee. Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Associate Commissioner. Yeah.
You're welcome, but before we convene, I do want to say that, yes, there is a veterans indicator in the CAP system.
There is.
There is.
There's a box.
Yes.
Oh, that's good. Thank you so much.
You're very
Thank you for
welcome.
that. Okay, and so thank you, panel. This is great. We got some good testimony. All right. In person first. We're doing in-person panels first. So I have to read this. This is I now open the hearing for public testimony. I remind members of the public that this is a formal government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony. They may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms in the back for inclusion at the hearing. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms, again, in the back. When recognized, you will have 3 minutes to speak on today's topic, addressing the needs of homeless veterans. That's the topic for today, addressing the needs of homeless veterans. So you have to speak on topic. This is what the council is saying. We will hear all in-person testimony first and then turn to testimony on Zoom. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. I will now call the first panel. Francesca De Paula? That's you. Armando Crescenzi and Christopher Leon Johnson. You never go first? I never did this before. Oh, okay. This button is. Okay. Francesca, you can start.
Okay, perfect. So I actually just came from Borden, and I am the CEO of Homes for Veterans. We're a privately funded 501c3 nonprofit, and we do barrier-free and accessible modifications in the homes of disabled veterans. But we do provide other services like helping veterans get their benefits. We do a lot of essential item drops at Borden, and I wanted to grow our relationship with New York and helping out at Borden Ave. So I actually have a list of things that they needed because you were asking how we can improve and if you wanted
Great.
to.
I'd like to see that.
Just everything you were asking, I actually have answers
So you went
for.
around Borden and did some
Yes,
making of-
I signed the NDA. I did a tour with my intern.
that's,
so
like,
I have
amazing.
a list of things. It's not long. So I know you were focused on the lighting. I don't know if maybe somebody else said that to you, but the main thing. Oh, that was a you thing.
That's the first thing I noticed.
Okay, so the main thing that they've been trying to get fixed for 15 years is the roof. It's leaking. So and I was gonna actually offer to pay for that, but there was pushback because they don't. And I've been working with ICL specifically, so I know it's like, I'm just sort of learning what's going on. I just want to help. I don't want to step on anyone's toes. So I offered to help that, but if you're offering funding, let's get the roof fixed.
Yeah, no, I think we both can, because I don't know if I'll get the funding. We can ask, but if the roof is leaking, that's a structural problem. That should be fixed.
It's bad, and it's been going on for 15 years apparently.
Okay.
And I'm willing to, help with that. We're a really small nonprofit, but we're lean and we're good. So, whatever we could do to help, let me know. But I wanted to put that on your radar immediately.
Great.
The second thing that I also offered to help with that I think we could do really quickly is they said because it's like a sliding door, that's an automatic sliding door that opens when you go in, the veterans said they're very cold, so they wanted to install one of these like wind vents that pushes the cold air out. I told them to send us an estimate on that. It's probably not. Oh man, can we schedule a meeting?
No, you could go on. I'm going to let you get extra time.
Okay, so the wind
Was
vent.
that 3 minutes? No, 2 minutes. No, not 2. 3. We're doing 3.
Okay, thank you. The wind vent, I told them to send me an estimate on that. So they could send me the estimate. I could share that with you as well. Another thing are the starter kits when the veterans leave the facility and they go on to their housing. They have these beautiful starter kits that are like pots and pans and stuff like that. But they said they were struggling to get every single veteran one of those kits. So like, let's make up a number. Let's say it was 60 veterans that move out. They get like I don't know, 50. Like they're just short some months because they don't have enough funding. So I offered every quarter to either get a corporate sponsor or for us to donate it. So that's like again like a
So
really
that's
easy
like
thing.
a kid to move into an apartment, they'd get
Pots, pans, basic
dishes, or
forks, spoons.
okay.
Yeah, basic
Yeah, that
stuff.
should again, we can work together on that.
Super
Yeah.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another thing. And then another thing that I really wanted to help with, they did a big cookout last year because I know you said you guys were trying to donate and you were kind of not able to get inside. So this summer they did a really successful cookout last year. They said it was great. They are doing one for Memorial Day, tentatively the Thursday before Memorial Day. They want to do multiple of those in the summer. So I also offered to try to get some corporate sponsors to try to raise money to help, chips, soda, just make those cookouts kind of like a really nice thing for the veterans to look forward to in the summer. And I just think more of the community that we can get involved, the better, because DVS was mentioning how do we get the word out about this is the only veteran homeless shelter in New York City. I'm from Bergen County. I never heard of this. And we don't have a shelter like this in New Jersey at all. We don't have the same kind of homelessness issue. So even in New Jersey, I think we should get the word out about this shelter. People want to help veterans, like you said. I think more people should know about it. So the cookouts could be a way, an easier way for people to get involved. It's less intimidating than fixing the roof, let's say. So that was my list. Again, we can
What about the kitchen? Do you saw the kitchen?
They didn't take me back in
Okay,
there, but we
that's
passed by. Yeah, I did ask about it. I didn't want to be too aggressive, but another thing. The offices where all of these reps are, so you guys have reps in these offices, they were really I thought the facility was much more beautiful for the veterans than where the reps are forced to go, in my opinion. There's no windows. If I was a caseworker there, I would not want to go to work. And my intern, who has worked in New York Presbyterian Hospital for 20 years, she goes to Lehman now. She was like, I would go there and be on my phone all day. It was depressing for the workers, you know? So the offices.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
So very good suggestions. Maybe we can coordinate, we can go together.
Please.
And then we could walk, I want to show you the kitchen, but I'd like some input, so.
Please, yeah. And maybe we can do
Great.
that. Can I give you my
Thank for-
card?
Yeah, yes,
Okay.
yes. You can stay.
do I say?
We might have
Sorry.
some questions for you.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
Armando. Just state your name for the record. Okay.
Crescenzi. Armando Crescenzi, put veterans first. I'm happy to speak on veterans homelessness. You all know that for the last 20 years, I've been a veterans advocate in all things relating to street vending. And that includes merchandise and it includes food. So as it says in the preamble of the Doe Fund, work works. Work works. So really, vending is a great opportunity for vendors, for veterans who are going through crisis, maybe returning to the city, maybe they're just great entrepreneurs. It's a huge opportunity and certainly a pathway to self-sufficiency for veterans who might be going through crisis. So having said that, I just would like to go on with something I prepared. Imagine living in a country where your business can be shut down by your competition with the physical brute force of the local police department.
Yeah, I just want to say, the topic of this hearing is homelessness and veterans. So you got to address that.
Vending,
Okay.
vending.
Because we've heard, we understand this. We're going to, again, we're going to address that. But what we need is
Okay.
from you to address the topic of the hearing.
Sure. So let me stay focused. That's not really was going to be my approach, but I will comply with your request. So basically, there are thousands of veterans in the city who are housing insecure. I don't know if you're aware of that. I mean, everybody talks about the outreach. So it's like, where do vets sign up? Where do they self-identify? right? Well, I know one place where they self-identify, at the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, where if you tell a veteran that he can work as a vendor, street vending or food vending, then they come forward and self-identify. Every year there's a turnover, but there's roughly between 1,000 and 1,500 service-disabled vets who are stepping forward to self-identify. So if that is one of the weak links, I would like to submit that's one place to start, the Department of Consumer Worker Protection. Also, there are, when veterans come back and face the city, it's a hard city to make a living in. And the transition is likewise hard. And housing is just too damn high. So self-sufficiency is a crucial mechanism to fight veteran homelessness. All right. I do it. I mean, I from time to time, I find myself in financial difficulty, and I'm really grateful that I have the flexibility to street vend. Now, for some veterans, it might be that they want to start a business. For other veterans, they're in crisis. Either way, that opportunity should be available for New York City veterans. Actually, it's mandated by New York State that veterans have certain privileges, and I'm speaking specifically to placement restrictions, because this is one of the issues that drives veterans from seeking that self-sufficiency as vendors. The city and the city council and a myriad of agencies, if they recognized the rights of these veterans to try to become self-sufficient, all right, if these rights are recognized, then more veterans would step forward and try to do that.
By
You
the
might
way,
be saving some
we're
lives.
meeting with the police commissioner. Hopefully we get a date very quickly. That's on the agenda of our 5 top projects or issues with the police commissioner to stop having NYPD harass the veterans, or at least let them have a location and let.
Well, they're actually, I'm sorry.
So
to interrupt.
I just want to but we got to move on. We just have to move on. All
The
right?
officers who are
One more-
issuing those tickets are actually in contempt of a court order.
That's on the topic, and I'll bring back what the commissioner says about that. So I know she's a problem solver, and I'm sure she'll address it. Thank you.
Hello,
Chris-
my
Chris-
name is
yeah,
hello.
Chris.
My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I'm here to support your bill, Bob. Intro 685. I want to know why Sandy Nurse, who's on the committee, I think she should be removed because the way her behavior today was disgusting. She came in looking all condescending and didn't even ask not this man a question. She didn't even stay like at least 15 minutes for the hearing. So and then she didn't even jump on the bill. Is it because that it doesn't say homeless sex offenders are part of the bill? Is that the reason why? Because we all know that Sandy Nurse loved to stand with known pedophiles like Akeem Browder and Douglas Powell. Is that the reason she's not jumping on the bill? I want to know why. What's going on here? Now, let's make this clear that he's right about how they harass the veterans out. They love harassing veterans with the tickets. They don't harass they love to harass the veterans because they easy see. They know these guys don't fight back. But they would have dared to harass those illegal vendors that usually legally not supposed to be here under Trump at Corona Plaza and all over Roosevelt Avenue. Now the big issue is that the city council, starting with you, Mr. Holden, need to start going to Roosevelt Avenue, not sending Phil, not sending Alicia, not sending Daniel. You yourself needed to go to Roosevelt and call the stuff out on the heart of Corona Plaza and walk to Roosevelt and see what's going on. They don't get harassed because of council members like Sandy Nurse, who's a piece of crap council member. She is one of the main engineers in the city council with the help of the Mayday Space and Star Bar that are protecting these guys and gals. You don't go out there, Bob. Everybody know you know not one time during the rallies at Roosevelt with Hiram Montserrat been out there with the people trying to say we need to get rid of these guys and gals. These guys are getting harassed first. They always get harassed first. They always get harassed by the NYPD. When you go to Times Square, they get the biggest stick up the butt because they always get tickets all the time, while the Jennifer Raj Kumar crowd, who are mostly Indians, Hindus, and Arabs, they never get harassed. They stand out 24 hours. They stink. They smell. You can see the flies come out the cart. They never get harassed. They never get tickets, but veterans always get tickets. So he's right about this. The NYPD does nothing about it but give these guys a ticket. Oh, we're tough on crime. We're tough on crime with the vendors. Let's get this guy a ticket. Instead of giving the mestizo the ticket, the illegal the ticket, the migrant the ticket. And Bob, you do nothing about it. What's
Well,
going
again,
on
the
here?
topic of this hearing is
that's the
on
topic of the hearing, man. It's about homeless veterans
right.
because some of the veterans are homeless and they get hassled a lot. But Bob, you need to go to Roosevelt. You need to go to Times Square and start talking to these veterans in person, Job Center, and see what's going on here because he's right. And it's wrong for you to cut this guy off and say that's not on topic. It is
he
a
had
topic.
4 minutes, so I gave
It
him
is
more
on.
time.
It is on top. It is
All
on
right,
topic,
thanks,
brother.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, man. We support our veterans here, unlike Sandy Nurse.
Next panel is Joe Bello, Timothy Pena, and Raul Rivera.
We've got another in person after this.
Okay. Joe, you're on leadoff. You want to wait? Okay. Let's go, Raul. You're on the end. Go ahead. You can. Oh, no, all right. You're passing it off to Tim. Okay. By default. All right. Then.
Hello, all. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Timothy Pena. I run an organization. I own a company called Veterans Justice Project, which advocates for homeless and incarcerated veterans. I also run an organization called The Forgotten Veteran. On topic of the supportive housing and transitional services, I spent 5 months in Borden Avenue myself, waiting for my paperwork. My apartment was empty at the time. There are still 2 empty apartments in my building for veterans that have been empty for in excess of now 2.5 years since I came to New York.
Where is this?
This is through a HASA program and is supportive housing over in Chelsea. And I know what coming into supportive housing program is like. Because I went through the paperwork, I have a HASA voucher or with a HUD-VASH voucher. So I have a HASA program HUD-VASH voucher. I've been there for 2 years. It took about a year to even get the paperwork done for so we could have sign a lease. So by the time I got moved in, there was no paperwork ever done. I got threatened by Borden staff, security, and so I was taken out of there for my own personal safety. And then they wanted to send me over to Colonial House, but I insisted on going to my apartment, which was empty and waiting. And so I had my keys. I got threatened by about 8 a.m. After testifying in front of the New York State Assembly. This was in 2022. By 3:30, I had my keys to my apartment. So they can get it done. I'm insulted by the 295 days average because that's absolutely not true. It's much longer. The VA's Grant Per Diem program, which is sharing space with veterans who have not earned their benefits that the rest of us have and who are doing criminal damage, making assaults, engaging in drug and gang activity, are ruining it for the rest of us who have served our country honorably and have earned these benefits. This idea that we are keeping veterans in Borden Avenue for them to reach mental health stability is a crock. Councilwoman Marmorato, you said yourself your father was much better after he left the shelter. So why is DHS leaving us in the shelters? The reason why is because the VA is paying them to leave us in the shelters for up to 2 years, which is the extent of the GPD program. Those 154 beds that they're collecting almost $4 million a year only have about 116. The rest of those VA paid for, VA funded beds are filled with non-VA veterans. Donations that are coming in, we saw this with Francesca. We're not allowed in there. We're not embraced. As veterans, we come in. We couldn't even serve coffee because they wouldn't allow us in the door. So we had to serve coffee in what, 26, 27 degrees? And out on the park bench, the only bench outside of that facility. If you notice the article I gave you, this guy is inside Borden Avenue filming veterans, promising them claims, then posting them on his nonprofit website, and then asking for donations. This is the type of people that DHS will allow inside Borden Avenue to film and violate their HIPAA, their VA rights and policies
All right,
under the VA.
Thanks, Tim. We
And
gotta,
then-
okay.
Okay, so I appreciate.
I'll look at that.
We're
I'll look
doing
at that.
all of this.
Okay, we'll look at that article, and thank you for your testimony. Joe Bello, you ready? Yeah. Okay.
Is this on? Yeah, here we go. I really don't have testimony. I just kind of wanted to point a few things out, like listening to what was going on. So first and foremost, I just really wanted to point out as a reminder to everybody that in June of 2023, the mayor held with DVS, a housing summit at City Hall. And if we're talking about housing and needed housing for veterans, really, we still don't know what came out of that meeting. A number of people I've spoken to who went there, pictures were taken, things were said, they talked about something in Brooklyn, and I don't know what came out of that meeting. So maybe if there's a follow-up conversation, you might want to do that. The other thing, too, is to Francesca, in speaking to Borden Avenue, I think they did say to you that the leaking roof has to go to DHS and that they have to do when they do the capital project. So that's something that maybe you want to talk to her about as well with the capital project. In terms of the commissioner's testimony, one of the things that I'm still really, I'm always struggling with is where they're getting their data from. And the data numbers that are thrown out, there's no context to those numbers. So for example, when I worked in the city council, and one of your predecessors, when the commissioner had announced that they had housed 1,000 veterans, we asked them, that's great. How many were recidivism? How many were single females? We asked them a number of questions that we never got answers to. So in anything that when numbers are thrown out, I'm always looking to what's the context, and hence I'm not getting the context of how he knows these numbers, where these numbers are coming from, and what's behind them. So the data is always, to me, either a point in time or we really don't know. One of the other things that I didn't hear about this hearing that I was very concerned about is aging. So we know at Borden Avenue, some of the residents are as old as 80. And recently, one of the residents is 78. I don't think they need workforce development at that point. I think they need something other than supportive housing as well. So we need to have a conversation around Borden Avenue around aging and around what we're doing, because we are, and I think we all know this looking at everybody in here, we are an aging population. 70% of us or 72% of us in New York City are over the age of 55. So we have to have that conversation as well. In terms of the NDAs, that has been a problem. And one of the things that I would have liked to have asked DHS is, a number of us, including the groups that you went with, would like to see the policy. I don't think they've been very clear about the policy on these NDAs. And certainly NDAs don't screen people. NDAs are basically like no photographs, and we have to wonder where that rule came out of. So I think one of the things that ICL has been talking about is like everyone looking at them and them saying, but it's not us. It's DHS for this policy that came out in September of 2024. So that has to be addressed. Yeah, and the other thing too, last 2 points, is DHS doesn't make this clear in their testimony here today that this is a policy in every shelter. I would have liked to have at least heard that point. I'm guessing it is, but I certainly didn't hear that. I only heard Borden Avenue,
Well,
so.
yeah, we can ask that. That's
Yeah.
a good question. Is this only for Borden? And we'll find that out quickly.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it. Just the other thing is, I was just curious that you were mentioning workforce development, but the DHS rep was saying a lot of the vets have mental health. We know that the average age of the veterans at Borden Avenue are like in their 50s, late 40s, 50s. Most of them are Gulf War I vets. So is it mental health? Do they need workforce development? What is it? I don't think we were clear from this hearing what exactly that was.
Well, I think
that's
it's
all.
all of the above. There's a
It
lot of
probably
issues.
is, but
Individuals have, again, I can't just, in talking to an individual, I can't make a decision like what does this person need. That's why I asked about the counseling and how often. It's twice a month. We learned. I know Tim saying that doesn't happen.
Sir, what happens with the mental
Could you use the
health-
mic?
What happens with the mental health and the counseling, you've got a veteran like myself who comes in. I already have a VA regimen. I'm already, I'm 70% for PTSD. So I know what it's like to have to work with your mental health.
But did you, when you were there for 5 months,
what they're
did you?
trying to do
No,
is
when
push
Tim,
you under theirs.
Tim, when you were there for 5 months, did you get counseling?
Not from them.
Not from.
I got mine from the VA where I'm at now.
Okay, so you didn't get it from the shelter.
This idea of bringing a veteran in and then telling them, oh, you need to tell us give all us information, talk to us all of this, we're going to do this for you, we're going to do that for you, then absolutely do nothing. At that same time, you're taking the veteran away from their VA benefits that they're supposed to be getting.
All right. Okay.
So when they
we gotta
leave the
move on to
shelter,
Raul.
they
All right.
have nothing.
Okay.
They have
Thank
to
you.
start all over.
All right. Thanks for that.
Appreciate that.
Good afternoon. My name is Raul Rivera. I'm a TLC driver and a TLC driver advocate. We are here supporting our veterans. We thank the chair for all he does for the veterans. We have plenty of veterans in my family. I had a cousin that was almost killed. He was in the Coast Guard. He was shot and he survived. Shout out to Alex Stein, who's here too. We're happy to see him. I'm here because we support our veterans, but I'm also here because you have 2 members on your committee who are we having trouble, communicating with. It's shameful that we have to come to committees and testify just to see our council members, to get a meeting, to get the emails that go unresponded, text messages go unresponded. It's not cool. We're trying to get meetings with our members, our council members, and they're not responding to us. I'm a press pass card holder, and I was blocked. I was blocked at City Hall. I can't go into press conferences. I'm being blocked by these officers, and they think it's cool. It's not cool. They give you all kinds of excuses, and they blocking people from going and gathering content. I have that right. I have the right to advocate. I have the right to to use my press pass. If I dishonor the press pass, I lose it,
But Raul, can you talk
yes,
about
when it comes to
veterans and homelessness? That's the
yes,
topic.
well, I can relate to homelessness. I was homeless. I was homeless for a long time, and thanks to a veteran who's letting me stay with him, I'm living in Brooklyn right now. But I'm from District 13, and I do work. I work. I don't have a nonprofit. I don't ask for money. And when it comes to the veterans, I can tell you something about the veterans in Hudson Yards who reached out to me because they know I'm vocal, they know I speak up, they know I don't have fear, and they've been pushed out. They've been pushed out from Hudson Yards. They can't.
You talking about the vendors?
Yes.
Okay.
They've been pushed out. That's disgusting that they've been pushed out. Nobody spoke up for them. And we reached out to Botcher, who's the council member from the district, reached out to the mayor. I know the mayor myself. You know, I got his number.
Just if you could just give me the locations of the vendors.
They already got pushed out.
No, but you tell me where they wanted it, and that's their corner, or that's their space. If you can give me that information, I'll talk to you after the hearing, and we could try to address that with the police department and see if they go there, if they have that location.
You know who gives them the hard time is the Parks Department. It's the Parks Department that has to be looked into. They're the ones that are giving them tickets. I can bring you a vendor that's got 200 tickets. 200 tickets for a veteran. That's insane.
Okay, that's something we could also address.
It's
to
veterans.
The
If
Parks.
you
I'm on
can't-
the Parks Committee. We'll address it to the commissioner.
Council member, what happens if you can't work? You become homeless.
I get it.
It's all connected.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you.
Raul.
Thank you. Thank you for the letter too.
Thanks so much. This is online. Melissa Ortiz. Melissa Deval Ortiz. This is our next panel. Sharon Brown, Alex Stein. Again, the topic is homeless veterans. Melissa, you could start.
Hi. Thank you for holding this hearing on homelessness, and to the commissioner for his report. My name is Melissa del Valle Ortiz. I recently gave testimony in September stating that I too was a homeless veteran with 2 children in tow. When I first came out in 1994, when I came back to New York. Homelessness among women veterans, and there's a study on it, is at its highest. I have not heard any conversation here about female veterans at all. I think that it's something that we really need to look at. Female veterans are typically stay living in cars. They couch surf because they have women in tow, children in tow with them. They typically are housed by family members. We are not looking at those statistics. And I think that that's something that City Council as well as the DVS really needs to look at with respect to veterans. I have not heard the word female veteran in this room, I think, but
No,
twice.
you're right. And that's what I'll try to find out the numbers if we can get that information. And we'll get back at the next hearing, or even if you contact my office, we'll give you that. So
I appreciate
that's
that.
important. That's that very good point.
Thank you. And then lastly, you talked about the lighting over at the homeless
Borden, yeah.
at Borden. There are also statistics that show that fluorescent lighting causes depression. And so for veterans to be housed, and I have not been to this facility, but for veterans to be housed in a facility that has predominantly overcast fluorescent lighting can very much affect their quality of life. So that is something that I would like to also just let the general public know. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And I turn off the lighting in my office for that reason, because I'd rather have the natural light.
Yes.
So I think you're on point on that one too. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Sharon Brown. Remember Israel, defend Israel, release the hostages, let Yahweh's people go. Thank you. Okay, the veterans that are in the shelters, it should not be a 2-year wait or any kind of wait. It should have been like 30 days or something like that, whatever their mandate is already. But I don't think that the shelter system should be for people who have served the country. I think that homeless veterans, from the street to a house, from the street to an apartment, we have the funds to put them in shelters for 2 years. That means that we have sampled it, we figured out we have the money. So now when we see veterans that need apartments and houses, get them from where they are, go to an apartment complex, go to a computer, look up an apartment, get them into apartment ASAP. Divert the funds. We've diverted funds before, and it hasn't been a problem. Divert the funds, put them directly into houses, get them their own businesses. They can also do the street vending and things like that, but they can also own bodegas and stores and different things like that. They are not mentally incapacitated. They have served this country. We need to treat them with respect. And the fact that they were able to take care of this country, that lets us know that they are fully capable. And even now, if we had called them to service, many of them might jump up and go back into service to defend this nation. And while the veterans were out on the streets homeless, I want them paid for service. I don't want them to be considered to have just been homeless. When they were out there, our country was safe because they were out there. They harassed them while they were out there. They harassed them while they were vending. Well, okay, good for you. So that means they dealt with warfare. They dealt with conflict. They were on duty. I want a bill or something passed that they get paid for the time they were homeless. If they were homeless for 20 years, we better get into our wallets. We're going to pay them for that as if they were active duty. If they were homeless for 10 years, the same thing. 2 years. We need to pay them as if they served us when they were out on the street. And I want them, again, I'm going to reiterate, I want them to own property. They are free. They don't need to be in transitional homes and things like that. We need to pull off that stigma. Anything that they need, services, let them go to it. Don't have any caps on their housing. Let them be free. Let them have car. We need to purchase cars for them. We need to get them anything they want and do it on our dime. They almost can live free here on earth in America.
Well, thank you, Sharon, for that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Alex Stein.
My name's Alex Stein. I just want to say thank you to the council for having this, but let's just be honest. I mean, this is just an exercise in some sort of weird virtue signal where you want to act like you care about veterans when in reality you don't care about veterans. We're sitting here, we're talking about fluorescent lighting inside of a homeless shelter, right? But let's talk about the thousands of illegal immigrants that get to live in Manhattan rent-free for months on end. And not only that, when they get the free food, we spend millions of dollars on the food. And you know what they say? We don't like this food. This food is not typical to what we eat in Venezuela. So you know what New York City is going to do? New York City is going to go and we're going to spend millions of dollars to give these illegal immigrants gift cards while veterans are out here literally freezing on the streets right now. So we're talking about a homeless shelter for some veterans when if I say that I'm an asylum seeker, if I'm a terrorist from Venezuela and I was a Tren de Arruga gang member and I said I'm coming here to claim asylum because this is such a great sanctuary city, you're going to give me a free hotel in Manhattan, but a person that goes to Iraq and defends our country against the actual Taliban, they don't get any social services, or if they do get social services, it's not a 4-star hotel in the middle of Manhattan. It's boarding in the middle of Manhattan at a 4-star establishment. I don't think so. So why do illegal immigrants in New York City get better conditions than our veterans who go out there and risk their lives for American citizens? Not just do they risk their lives for New Yorkers, they risk their lives for everybody in this country. And believe it or not, these veterans risk their lives for these illegal immigrants that get to take advantage of New York social services. So you want to sit here, you want to act like you want to help somebody. Why don't you do something about all the people taking advantage of this city, the hardworking American citizens that are struggling, but you don't care about them. You'd rather give an illegal immigrant that has a criminal history longer than a damn CVS receipt, you'd rather give him free room and board and a gift card to eat at any New York establishment that he chooses. That is wrong. New York City is it's the epicenter of culture. New York leads the way of our country. So the fact that we have a country like this that is just discarding these veterans and treating them as they are less than a normal citizen, this city should be ashamed of themselves. Mayor Adams should be ashamed of themselves. All the people on these councils should be ashamed of themselves because you sit here and you say, well, I don't know if I can get it passed. This should be a bipartisan issue. You don't think that veterans help out Republicans and Democrats? This is common sense. So New York City doesn't have common sense. Thank God Donald Trump got rid of that congestion pricing. That has cost me hundreds of dollars in Uber prices every time I visit this city. So thank God that that is gone. And help out our veterans by kicking every illegal immigrant out of the Roosevelt Hotel except for the big booty Latinas. They can stay. If you're a 9, you're fine.
Thank you, Alex. Now, we have a question for you.
I would actually.
For sure, Christy.
First of all, that you should really apologize. That was an inappropriate comment.
No, it's not.
about
It's not
the
inappropriate at
Latinas.
all. I can say
And
big
that's-
booty. Okay, yeah, according to you, it's the truth.
And
I'm allowed to
second-
say booty.
You-
So
but-
I'm allowed to say big booty.
Be a little
And it's
respectful.
funny because in a school you can say
All right.
booty. There's a much more degrading terms for a derriere than booty. So
And-
you want to sit here and act like I'm
All right,
cussing
we
because I
don't
said
wanna go
big
back and
booty
forth. Wait,
Latina?
wait.
You
Let-
need to
let
wake
the,
up. No, you're so
Alex,
sensitive.
First of
let
all,
her
let me
finish.
tell you
Yeah,
something.
tell
You
me
need to
something,
do
Christy.
your
Tell me
research,
something. Oh,
okay?
what's my
Check
research?
yourself, okay? You should know your role. You should know who you're speaking to. The people in this veterans community actually give a shit.
Oh,
We've
really?
met with Tom
Oh, really?
Holman.
Is that-
We
is that-
discussed the
Yeah,
migrant
I know.
crisis,
Is that why?
okay?
And why don't you kick them out then? Why am I scared of getting robbed by a bunch of illegal immigrants? So you
think
say
these
you're
aren't
doing
the same
something.
All right,
concerns?
Why are they all
Come
still
on.
there? I know, but you politicians are
All right,
fake.
cut the
You
mic,
act
cut the
like
mic.
you
You're
wanna
fake.
do something.
You're not even from this city, bro.
I don't need to be from this
Yeah,
city.
yeah,
I
yeah.
work in the city. It's funny because I work in the city. Get off me. I'm walking out. Guys, get off me. I work in the city. Get off my horn.
Now, we're going to the, on Zoom. One at a time, Janine Costley. Janine Costley.
Hi. Good afternoon, Councilmember Holden.
Hi,
And the
go ahead.
committee.
You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Dr. Janine Costley. I'm the Senior Vice President of Transitional Services at the Institute for Community Living. ICL is one of the largest providers of housing and behavioral health services for children, adults, and families. We serve 13,000 people annually through our 140 programs across the 5 boroughs, including clinics, shelters, residences, and community-based programs. We currently serve 301 veterans through the funding of the Department of Homeless Services, and we also obtain funding from the VA. Thank you, Chair Holden, for your support of the Borden Avenue Veterans Residence, New York's only residence dedicated to serving veterans with homelessness. Your leadership has helped us in so many ways, and it's really helped upgrade the facility substantially. I'm here today to talk about the city's concurrent mental health and homeless crisis, particularly for our city's veterans, and what needs to be done to ensure that nonprofits like ICL continue to get the help that's needed. Ensuring that well-being is ensured with the Department of Homeless Services, we need a lot of different procedures and resources to help support our work. ICL is committed to safeguarding and protecting our veterans by providing a safe and appropriate place for them to live. We're dedicated to partnering with DHS and our community partners to help make our shelter and veterans resources the best that it can be. Many residents at the Borden Avenue Veterans Shelter have seen combat and are living with the trauma regarding their past experiences and their past experiences with homelessness. We provide a whole health support, which underscores everything we do at ICL, includes medication management, nutrition, economic and job stability, and ensuring that we have stable and appropriate housing for our veterans. ICL has moved 223 veterans into affordable housing, permanent housing in 2024. And year to date, in 2025, we've already housed 31 veterans. Our newest supportive housing residence, the Nevins Apartments, includes 20 units for veterans, but so much more needs to be done, and we would like to invest more in housing for veterans to ensure their stability, ensure their health and well-being. Moreover, we need to revision the work that we do in the shelter system. We're operating within a framework where there's been little increases and adjustments to reflect the growing costs of food, insurance, and operational expenses. This trend is
Time has expired. Thank you.
and threatening to the lives of nonprofit organizations And we remain committed to working with the Department of Homeless Services and our partners to ensure that our veterans have housing and support to rebuild their lives. And we look forward to continuing working with the city and with the council to help our veterans and to ensure their stability and housing.
Thank you, Janine. By the way, Janine,
Yes.
I visited the downtown Brooklyn facility. It's a wonderful facility. And we met several veterans that spoke about how great it is there. So we'd love to expand that. And
We would love to do that,
and,
council member.
And if you could just comment, do you know anything about the roof at Borden that you're dealing with? Is like where are we with that? And what has been the city's response?
So the building, it's a very old building, and there's been some repairs that need to be done for a pretty long period of time. We've been working with the Department of Homeless Services and the Department of Buildings regarding the repairs that are needed there. The facilities department has come out and they've done repairs over the years, a lot of patchwork and a lot of fixing parts of the roof and the skylights at Borden. But it is a capital project and we're working closely with our partners at DHS to ensure that it gets done. Right now, it's on a plan that it'll get done sometime between now and the end of 2025. So we're working with them
All right,
closely to ensure that happens.
There's light at the end of the tunnel. So if they say the end of this year,
We're hoping that at the end of this year, we'll be able to do as much as we can for the roof. And so I would be happy to report back on that. And I'll be talking to DHS more about that. But every year we get new information. And so the information now is by the end of 2025 that it'll be fixed.
Thank you so much, Jeannie, for that. And thank you again for all the work ICL does. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can't, well, you're not, we can't have a talk from the audience here. Next witness is Ariane Ling.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Chair Holden, members of the Committee on Veterans. Can you hear and see me okay?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Great, thank you. So my name is Dr. Ariane Ling. I'm a clinical psychologist and the Associate Director of the Military Family Center at NYU Langone Health. I'm here to testify today on behalf of the Military Family Center and to support intro number 1171. Our center was established just over 11 years ago to fill a well-documented gap in services available to veterans and their families. The MFC provides free mental health treatment to veterans and their families who are experiencing the long-term effects of all phases of military service. And these services include evaluation and treatment of mental health disorders, co-occurring substance use, and the effects of traumatic brain injuries. And since its inception, our center has served over 4,000 veterans and their family members. We've developed strong partnerships with the VA and the Department of Veterans Services and many other organizations to reach veterans who are ineligible for care elsewhere or may be disconnected from mental health services. The sheer number of individuals that our clinic has been able to serve demonstrates the necessity for public and private partnerships and to meet the needs of the veterans and families in our community. And it is central to the mission of our clinic to decrease barriers to high-quality evidence-based care for our nation's military families. And we offer gold standard treatments and therapies for post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression, and substance use disorders. And these treatments include prolonged exposure therapy, cognitive processing therapy, and cognitive behavioral therapy. And we also tailor treatment to each veteran's unique needs and pride ourselves on staying up to date with new and emerging treatments to give our population the very best care available. And this includes most recently the addition of written exposure therapy. It's a short-term, highly accessible exposure-based treatment for trauma and stressor-related disorders. So Intro 1171, proposed by Chair Holden, is critical legislation that supports research and innovation on PTSD treatment and other psychological disorders. We believe this is key in advancing our understanding and improving care for veterans. And while I'm not specifically familiar with reconsolidation of traumatic memories therapy and can't speak to its effectiveness or recommend it at this time, I can and want to advocate for ongoing research and development of PTSD treatments. So if enacted, this legislation would provide essential insight to whether RTM therapy could be effective addition to our existing repertoire of PTSD treatments, as PTSD remains a significant public health challenge for our veteran community, and any opportunity to explore new evidence-based interventions should be met with consideration. So our center is equipped to working together with the community to address our ever-growing needs for our veterans and their families. And we hope that the council will further invest in this research. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Ling, and thank you all the great work you do at NYU. We'd love to expand that too. And there's no more waiting list, or do you still have a waiting list for veterans?
We have a brief waiting list for couples therapy, but we are really doing our best to meet everybody. So the wait list is not that long right now.
Yes, and by the way, RTM, it has shown some very, very good outcomes. So I will connect you with Dr. Burke, who came up with this about 20 years ago, and has been an advocate, and it's really it can help veterans. What we've seen so far, as little as 5 sessions, and it's quite innovative. So yes, thank you so much, Doctor, and appreciate your testimony.
Thank you so much.
Our next panelist is Michael Moreno. Michael.
Hello.
Yep.
Well, great to be here. Thank you all for giving me so much information and opening my eyes. I'm a Vietnam veteran, combat. I'm a grunt, and I'm also the vice president at the Vietnam Veterans of America in Chapter 126. We're in Manhattan, but we reach all over. I'm pleased to say that we have been working with the Veteran Services, the director of volunteer services at the New York Veterans Hospital, and we've opened what's called a Homeless Veterans Essential Needs Shop. Okay, we filled the place with clothing that will be either purchased, which we purchased thermal underwear because it's so cold out there. I don't want to say underwear, thermal clothing, coats, scarves, jackets, hats, and we've stocked up a room very with a lot of stuff. And when homeless veterans come to the hospital for treatment, for their medications, they're asked if they need clothing, and they go up to the shop. They go up to a ward on the 15th floor.
Michael, are you there? We lost you. We have him still? No? We'll come back. Michael, can you hear us? You got to unmute. All right, we're going to move on until we can reconnect with Michael. Deirdre Rice-Reese. Deirdre?
I'm here. Good afternoon.
Yes, okay.
Can you hear?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Good afternoon, shareholder and esteemed members of the Veterans Committee. My name is Deirdre Rice-Reese. Nice to be here again. I'm honored to speak on behalf of Samaritan Daytop Village. Many of you know what Samaritan does, but I'll speak briefly about it and as it relates to homelessness. I want to commend the committee for its commitment to addressing the full range of challenges faced by homeless veterans. Your focus on housing, wraparound supports, mental health resources is essential. Despite the tremendous progress in reducing veteran homelessness over the past decade, New York City saw one of the highest single-year increases in veteran homelessness in 2024, signals an urgent need to address not just housing, but also root causes of instability, including mental health challenges, substance use disorders, and economic hardship. Unlike many organizations, we would manage clients that had other than honorable discharges, and not for anything other than the fact that they need the help, and they did serve, regardless of their character or discharge. Samaritan, we see firsthand the barriers of veterans every day. Veteran-specific programs provide residential treatment for veterans struggling with PTSD, addiction, trauma. We work with NYU Langone. We work with DVS. We work with other community partners to make sure that we reach them. We also had the first ever exclusively female veteran program. We do job training and employment readiness, including resume writing, interview techniques, and internships, basic needs assistance, clothes, shoes, digital access to ensure that our veterans successfully engage in job searches and remote services. We advocate for discharge upgrades. That's a big one. Many veterans with less than honorable discharge are locked out of the VA benefits, and they might have been discharged because of their mental health or substance use issue. Despite having any service-related injury or mental health condition, they're locked out of the VA. We still have to address their needs. Opening this channel changes lives. Hearing the squares conversation from the commissioner from DVS, Commissioner Henderson, it really enlightened me around how we can reach out to other veterans. As an Air Force veteran and someone in long-term recovery for more than 30 years, I can personally attest to the life-changing impact of veteran-specific services. We definitely need them. We always need support in continuing our efforts, using an approach that is distinct to veterans, that is different from what is civilian supports. It makes a big difference. While serving is a privilege, it's also a sacrifice that deserves recognition, and not just in words. And I appreciate people say thank you for the words, but a sustained investment by building a culture of recovery, supporting veterans, pride in service, expanding resources. We can continue to transform lives. Thank you for your time, your leadership, your commitment to New York veterans. Samaritan stands as ready to partner with you. Continue our partnership in this mission.
Thank you, Deirdre, and thank you for your service, and thanks for all the great work you do on behalf of our veterans. So, you're an amazing group there, and certainly you're a good spokesperson for Samaritan Village. Thank you.
Good seeing you again, sir.
All right, nice seeing you. So we're trying to reconnect with Michael Morano.
I think he dropped off completely.
Michael? Yeah, he's not on. So the last call for Joseph Hoff.
Oh, actually, Michael's back now.
Oh, Michael's back?
You could try it now.
Michael, we have you back?
He's unmuted.
Can you unmute yourself, Michael? No good?
I don't think it's gonna
Okay.
work.
Michael, we can't hear you, so we're going to move on. Joseph Hoff, last call. Gordon Lee, last call. I think that's it, so we're good. Michael, I'm sorry. If you can contact my office, we can get the rest of your testimony. Somehow there's technical difficulties. So seeing nobody else, I'm going to adjourn this hearing. Thank you so much.